Do you sometimes feel that other people are more creative than you? Do you want to learn how to be more creative? Do you want to know why you get your best ideas in the shower? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then our keynote speaker is exactly the person you want to hear. Dr. Yoram Solomon is the author of 6 books, 21 patents, and more than 100 articles at Inc. magazine, and is a professional member of the National Speakers Association. He brings his no-nonsense Israeli and Silicon Valley startup creativity and culture to corporate America and helps them build a culture of innovation and find the next big thing. His clients include Fortune 500 companies such as AT&T, Corvo, Walmart, DRS, Texas Instruments, and many more, who describe his talks and workshops as transformative. Please help me welcome a speaker, an author, a paratrooper, a pilot who will never, ever go on a roller coaster ride, Dr. Yoram Solomon.
I was born, I assure you. I was born with big feet, really big. When I was 13, I was wearing size 12. Yes, I know, it's embarrassing and kind of hard to shop for. But you know, when life gives you lemon, you make lemonade. And I found that big feet were good for, Susan, swimming. And so it's 1978, back in Israel, and in 30 minutes I'm about to start my race, 100-meter breaststroke. That was my specialty. And I had lane number 4. And in case you don't know what lane number 4 means, lane number 4 means that in 1978 I had the best time in Israel. And we're 30 minutes away. And if I manage to do this pre-qualifiers, that was the Olympic pre-qualifiers, then I will go to the qualifiers. And after that, maybe the 1980 Olympics. And we have 30 minutes to start, and all the others are warming up. Not me. I don't need to warm up. I have big feet. They don't. That's why I have the best time in Israel. So I don't warm up. I just wait out the 30 minutes, and it's time we get there, ready, set, go. I jump first, and I swim as hard as I can, and I turn after the first lap, I'm still first. And I swim all the way back, I have it in my pocket. And a cramp.
Oh no.
And another one. And it's getting really, really, really hard. And I made it all the way to the end, and I made number 4. And just so that you know, the first 3 do go to the qualifiers. And that was the end of my swimming. Actually, my competitive swimming. I keep on swimming every now and then, but I stopped competing. Why am I telling you this? Because you see, many people think that they were just not born creative, or others think that they were born more creative than others. Just like I thought that I had big feet and I'm going to win every contest that I competed in. But we don't. Just like we have to warm up our muscles, we also have to warm up our brain. Creativity is not something that you're born with. Study after study showed that you are not born creative. You're not born less creative. Creativity is something that you work out, that you work your brain. And I'm going to tell you exactly how. But first, another story. Back in 2010, I was working for a company. I had just invented a new product. And I presented it to the board, to the CEO, and after that to the board of directors. Am I the only one who hears that? That's my right brain working. So I presented it to the board of directors in July of 2010. And at that time, they liked it, They wanted to invest in it, and they invested $10.5 million over the next 4 years until we launched the product. But right there, after that meeting, one of the trustees, one of the board members, not a trustee, one of the board members followed me to my office, and as he came in, he said, "This happens once in a lifetime, an idea like this." And I wonder, why do you think that it happens once in a lifetime? And he said, because great ideas are accidental. And if you think about it, the invention of the microwave oven and the 3M Post-its, and even Newton sitting under a tree and an apple fell on him, all accidental. Or was it? And I thought to myself, that's not my first idea. I had plenty of ideas. I launched a lot of products. So why me? I wasn't born more creative than others. I was born with bigger feet, but not more creative. And I started thinking about what was it that I was doing that was different. I'm going to take you back, 1939, to an ad agency in New York, and a man by the name of James Webb Young. And if you think about an ad agency, you think about Mad Men, right? So it's like Mad Men before TV, 1939. And James Young was what we call in an ad agency a creative. So he's the person who comes up with all the ads. And he hears a knock on the door, and one of the salespeople came into his office and said, "You know, we are in a meeting right now, and we have a question for you. How do you get your great ideas?" And James Young thought first it was a joke, but it wasn't. This salesperson was waiting for the answer to take it back to the meeting, and James Young had no idea. But he thought about that, and he wrote in 1939 a book, pretty short book, about how to create great ideas. And this book actually is available on Amazon, on Kindle, for $1.89. 71 years later, I came up with the process. Totally, I didn't know anything about James Young. My book sells for $24.95. I'm better in finance than he was. But I'm going to tell you today a process, what the process is. And our processes are very, very similar. And they are based on something that's called combinational creativity. And combinational creativity is when we have ideas in our brain, old ideas that merge in our medial prefrontal cortex to become new ideas. But before I do that, I need 2 volunteers. Seriously. Here. 2 volunteers here. Come over. Give them a hand. They're taking a risk now. They have no idea. You are?
My name is Leela.
Leela. Leela and?
Robbie.
Robbie. Leela and Robbie, hold those cups. Hold them like they're full.
Okay.
Now I want you to turn away from me and walk 5 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those were big steps. Okay, turn back to me. Those cups are empty, so don't worry. I think they're empty. Oh, I'm in the middle of this. What this represents, Leela, you are going to be my right brain, right?
Okay, sure.
And Robbie, you're going to be my left brain. That's not a bad thing. By the way, everybody knows that the creative people are right-brained, right? Yes, no, it's not. They're not. Research showed that there is absolutely no such thing as right brain, left brain people. Right brain analyzes visual, left brain analyzes text. By the way, here's a tip. If you ever create slides, always put the images on the left, the text on the right, because the left eye looks to the left, connects to the right brain. That's where we analyze visuals. The right, you're still holding the cups. Don't drop them. The right eye connects to the left brain and we see the text. Okay, now you have one idea, one old idea in your hand, you have another old idea in your hand, and what we're going to do is I want to create a new idea, so when I count to 3, I want you to throw those cups 3 feet and 7 inches above my head, which is where my medial prefrontal cortex is. I don't know where yours is, but 3 feet and 7 inches above my head, and if we're successful, if you can hit one another, we're going to have a new idea. At the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Thank you for playing. First of all, give them a hand, and you get a free book for your trouble. So what happened? Why couldn't we create a new idea? Because we only had 2 ideas. And step number 1 in our 4-step process is collect old ideas. But don't collect ideas that are inside of what you do every day. Don't collect ideas. Don't get ideas from your own business, from your own market, your own industry. Get ideas from outside. Read things. I read popular science and popular mechanics and all kinds of things. I watch TED videos. I get all kinds of ideas. One of the best sources of ideas is science fiction. Science fiction is a great source of idea. Anybody here watch Star Trek? You know when it started? 1966. Do you remember what they had in their ears? What did they have? A Bluetooth headset. 33 years before Bluetooth was created. Because one day in 1999, I bet that one of the engineers thought, you know, now that radios are smaller, electronics is smaller, batteries are smaller, and microphones are smaller. You remember that episode 33 years ago? We can do that. Step number 1, collect old ideas. Step number 2, this one is hard. So far, step number 1 is not that hard, right? All you have to do is read, watch movies, watch TED Talks. Step number 2 is hard. Stay with me. Do nothing. Okay? Let those ideas incubate in your, you checked, Mark. Let those ideas incubate in your head. Don't force combinations because you can. Those combinations will happen and I'll tell you exactly when and where. But don't force those combinations. So you let them incubate. And I'll tell you another story. I was working back in the early 90s in Israel, developing alarm systems for an alarm company. And one day I was facing a problem. There was a bug in what I wrote, and I could not for the life of me find it. I was a geek. I mean, I could work on this forever. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I had a date that night. I would say fortunately because geeks don't get a lot of dates. And I had a date. And I'm telling you, I struggled. I struggled with actually not going on that date because I had to find this out because it was 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and I could not find it, and I had to find it. But I decided to go on a date, which is actually pretty fortunate because last month that date and I celebrated 24 years of marriage. No, that's you. She had to be here to get clapped, not me. I'm the lucky one. But we went on a date, and at 9:30 we went into a movie. And as the movie started, about 20 minutes into the movie, I whispered, "I got it!" Well, yeah, no, I didn't whisper because people were looking at me, so I'm pretty sure I didn't whisper. But I knew what it was. See, I could spend the entire night at the office and not find what it was, and what I needed was that hour and a half of not thinking about it, of just letting ideas incubate in my head. And it can be an hour and a half, it can be a week and a half, it can be 33 years, but it will eventually come. Step number 2, do nothing. Let those ideas incubate in your head. Step number 4. Okay, there are at least a few people that realize that 4 comes after 3, but there's a reason why I skipped 3 and I'll get back to 3. Step number 4, there was a survey in 2014 that asked, it wasn't a doctoral research type survey, but it asked people, where do you get your best ideas? 72% said they get their best ideas in the shower. There's something about the title of this talk that helped you. In the shower. In fact, 14% said that they take a shower just to get new ideas, which makes you hope that they're trying to get at least one idea a day. 72% in the shower. Why? Because you can't stimulate the brain enough to create ideas. The brain has to be in neutral. You know how the second place is actually when you drive, and not just when you drive, but when you drive to the same place you drive every day. My first office was up in Santa Rosa, California. My home was in Sunnyvale. In case you didn't know, it's 100 miles away. I loved that commute. It was Highway 280 and then 19th Avenue in San Francisco. I had the Golden Gate Bridge on my commute to work twice a day. I love that commute. It's an hour and 40 up, 2 hours down. But that's okay. And I had a lot of ideas because you know how it is when you drive to the same place day in, day out, and all of a sudden you stop at a red light and you can't for the life of you remember anything from the moment you left home until you're here because you're on autopilot. And when you're in autopilot, your brain lets ideas merge. So I skipped step 3. We are people that are affected by change. Change affects us more than a state. And if we just took a shower, we would get ideas. But because our brain is going to be neutral, but if we first exercise our brain really, really, really hard on something that's pretty intense, and then took a shower, that the drop in level of activity would dramatically increase our ability to combine those ideas. What do? I used to fly. I still am. I'm a pilot. And I remember when you fly, there's, at least the planes that I used to fly, there's about 42 gauges in the cockpit that you need to watch over. And any one of those shows a bad value, you're dead. Now, you share the sky with big planes, with 777s and 747s. And you need to know where they are and they need to know where you are, because if you end up on their path, you're dead. And then there are thunderstorms, which we're going to have tonight. Thunderstorms and turbulence and all kinds of wind shear and stuff that you don't want to find yourself inside, because if you do, then you're dead. So flying is not a relaxing activity. One day I showed up at work, 8 a.m., we had a meeting, and all of a sudden the CEO asked me, "Did you go flying yesterday?" I said, "Yeah." "How do you know?" He said, "What I realized is," and I used to fly once a week, and it was on different days, so he couldn't know. He said, "What I just realized is that every time you come to work after you flew the day before, you're more focused, you're more on point, you're more creative." It doesn't have to be flying, so you don't have to all get pilot's license. But it can be running, and it can be walking, and it can be being on the treadmill, going for a long walk, anything, swimming, Susan. Anything that is high intensity, that really activates the executive part of your brain. And right after that, you take a shower. Or you drive to the same place, or you daydream, because that's when you're going to get your ideas. So as I promised you, 4 steps. 1, collect old ideas outside of your area of expertise, outside of your comfort zone. Step number 2, do nothing. Let those ideas incubate in your head. Step 3, high intensity activity. And step 4, take a shower. Thank you very much.